Today we're going to discuss Unleashing Your Dog's Genius, the new age of dog training with Matty, Couperthwaite. Before we dive into today's topic, I want to take a moment to talk about something that has been causing quite a buzz in the pet world lately. Have you heard about the harvest table? If you've been following our previous episodes, you might remember our enlightening conversation with Bronwyn Anderson, the marketing manager at the harvest table. They've recently launched a remarkable new range of pet products. And folks, you do not want to miss this. I've had the pleasure of learning about their innovative collagen powder for pets, and it's truly impressive. But here's the deal. To fully grasp the significance of this new range, I highly recommend checking out their previous podcast with Bronwyn Anderson. It's packed with insights about how the harvest table is contributing to the pet industry. So here's your mission if you choose to accept it. Listen to that previous episode, and trust me, you'll be just as excited as I am about their new pet products. It's like a game changer for our furry friends. And after you've done that, be sure to explore their new range. It's all about keeping our pets healthy. The Harvest Table has some fantastic options to help with just that. All right, now that we've got that covered, let's dive into today's episode. Welcome back to the Pause and Effect podcast, where we delve deep into the world of pets, their health, behavior, and their nutrition. I'm Dr. Kari, your host, and a dedicated veterinarian. Today we're in for a treat as we welcome a special guest, the one and only Matty, the dog trainer. Not only is he an expert in dog training and behavior, he's also a prolific online course creator and content producer. Get ready for an engaging conversation that's sure to leave you and your furry companions begging for more. Hang on, no begging allowed. He's a dog trainer. Matthew, welcome.
Thank you, and hey guys, thanks for having me.
It's so cool to have you here. Only very selfishly because, like I was saying to you before, I want to tap into all the advice that you have and all the people who have been contacting me via social media to say, please ask him, because I need some advice on various behavioral issues.
Yeah.
So just provide clarification. Who are you? Where are you from? Why have I got you here today?
Awesome. Well, I'm Matthew Couperthwaite. I'm known as Matty, the dog trainer online, and I'm invited here today so we can chat about training issues, potentially some behavioral issues, and I always think that one of the big ports of call of when people have a dog training challenge is actually their vets, right? So how often do the vets, someone comes in and they go, my dog is doing X, Y, and Z, and then the vets need to give that information. So I think it's also a great conversation for any vets listening to have that additional piece of information, because I'm not really sure how much behavioral and training stuff is actually covered in vet school.
No,
right?
not enough. Yeah. Definitely not enough.
I think I'm very excited for this conversation and where it's going to go.
No, it's great. So, taking that lead, I know that, obviously you learn from experience, and sometimes that's not necessarily a good experience or the right kind of advice you're giving. So I think, vets have got a great opportunity to recognize behavioral issues, give advice on instituting the correct measures, but also to hand that over to people who know what they're doing and are in a position to provide the right and the up-to-date guidance on it. Yeah. So I certainly know my limitations. I can every day I experience bad behavioral issues with my own dogs and training needs. Yeah. So I can talk from experience when things work, but often they don't. And so that's why we need people like you. Yeah. So that's very, very cool. And I believe you've just come back from recording and trying to produce an app?
An app, yes,
coming out?
Yes, there is. So it's very exciting. We've spent the last couple of weeks in Cape Town shooting some dog training content.
Okay.
Essentially what we're doing is a first version of an app. We do have an idea of a much bigger version, but we want to take something to market that we can first work with. And we're launching with 3 different courses. Each course is going to be rolled out over time, but in early November, we'll have our first course called Calm on Leash. So it's helping pet dog trainers, not just dog trainers, but dog trainers could take it too, but dog owners, that if you have an issue with your dog and you are stressed out every single time you want to take your dog for a walk, that this would be a potential course that you could take. I've over time realized that, people get dogs because they see the Disney dog, right, where they want to have this beautiful relationship, and then all of a sudden stuff starts going downhill. Sometimes you get a dog that almost, I don't know, they seem like they come pre-programmed. I don't know how that happens.
It's never my dog.
But it's like, it's magical. Do you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
I've had one dog like that just kind of just got everything.
Yeah.
Like never pulled on leash, came back when called. Like there was barely any training involved. They just kind of like got it, right? But then you also get those dogs that people get as a puppy, and they might even take them to puppy school, right? But it also just unfolds, and they want to take the dog for a walk, but taking a dog for a walk sometimes is more stressful than actually just having them in your house and throwing the ball for them or something like that. So that's the idea behind the app. Is we're taking these bite-sized problems and struggles that people have and turning them into strengths. But so it's not just like a dog training app where you know there's other apps out there, not to slate them or anything, but it's like, you know, train your dog to be more obedient or 107 tricks. I'm like, okay, that's not actually helpful.
Practical stuff is what we need.
Exactly. We need a specific result or
Yes.
a specific outcome. So what we're tailoring and doing is having the common leash. The next one is called back in a snap. So that's so your dog can have off leash freedom. You can take them to the park so you can at least walk them to the park, and then you can let them
Let
off
them go.
and they can come back. And then the next one is going to be more of a membership-based community within the app. So that will be a core program that everyone can go through that teaches the dogs like the basic manners. And then if you join that membership, then you get access to all of our other courses for free that we'll be rolling out, which is
as they evolve.
As they evolve. So in the beginning, I'll tell everyone now, I'd love for you to join at some point, but it is still a very MVP. We, working with the developers and so on. But in the future, we do have some very cool plans of where the point in the app where you will be able to enter your dog's name and their breed information, and your dog training plan will get tailored specifically for your breed of dog. So
that's special.
When you're working with a working dog like a border collie versus a Jack Russell, their training needs can be slightly different.
So those breed traits that you can recognize that Jack Russells are typically XYZ, and that's why you
should do it this way, or how you engage with them. So the name of our app is Canine Genius, and the big thing of what I want to take into the world is I believe that dogs are geniuses, and as dog parents or as a dog trainer that's helping other dog owners, it's our responsibility to unlock that genius. So I see this like idea of where dogs have a blueprint of being amazing family pet dogs, right? And what we need to do is curate the training and the relationship building techniques to make them flourish and come to life.
That's great. That's incredible.
That's what I work with.
I think that's going to be life-changing for a lot of pet owners. And I think, for me, my experience has always been that, especially also studying, I'm continuing to do online masters, is that if you need that information and you want to go back to it, that it's available there at your disposal. So it's, obviously we refer a lot of people to behaviorists or animal or trainers, and then you have to deal with the in situ situation, and it's a once-off, unless you get it that moment. So the benefits of having this on an app for me, I think, are great. Is that what you're finding? Is that people want it in hand?
Absolutely. And it's, I think, and I actually always hear this when you actually start having conversation with dog owners. We went to puppy class, and there was this big dog, and I have a small Chihuahua, and it like took my dog out. There's always, and like people get over going for this 3 week. They go for 3 weeks out of a 6 week program, and it falls apart. Not the case for everyone.
So nice for socialization, possibly.
Right? But that's But I mean, even then, you have to be careful of like how well the class is curated to make sure that the temperaments, etc., are all correct. But to that point of where I think what often happens is people go into these classrooms or a group class, and there's like 10 other dogs, and everyone's dog is trying to play with each other, and it's so distraction. The dog trainer is trying to facilitate and teach you to train your dog, and like the retention of information is like that much. And the idea behind this is, okay, you watch these videos, and then you go and play with your dog, and you do we do game-based dog training, which I'll tell you a little bit about in a minute. But when you can just do those like bite-sized pieces, And then you can go and watch the video again and pick up the pieces that you missed.
Yeah, what did I do? How did they get it right?
Get it right, or what did I maybe just not quite execute correctly? I think that's where the magic is going to happen. And it's not to take away in-person dog training, because when you've got a severe dog training case, you might need to get a behaviorist in where you're dealing with big aggression cases. So there's totally still that, that piece that's needed. But there's also the piece of where you need to actually, to get consistency, you need to train your dog 2 or 3 times a day. And I'm not talking about 20, 30 minutes. It's 3 to 5 minutes at dinner time, at breakfast time, around lunch when you're making a lunch, just play a game with your dog.
And it's in situ. So it's not like, you're taking them into a new environment and expecting them to like not go out the door when they go, okay, I won't go out of this door, but hey, when we're at home,
exactly,
like it doesn't apply. So.
Exactly. So it's being able to make that all work within your house. And that's a big part of my training method. It's actually funny. I call it, I'm not sure if I can say the S word on the podcast, but we'll call it pooper training. So where I sit in the bathroom and I train my dogs, because there's no distractions, right? And so it's a very sterile environment where you're like, a lot of the times people go and train their dogs, and you go to a dog training class or out to a field, and the dogs, like, there's so many distractions, and
picking
their
up
smells,
sticks and monkeys, and
exactly, to get them to focus is really difficult. So the more sterile the environment, the better. And then over time, you start increasing the distractions. So you go from the bathroom to the bedroom, where there might be a little bit more stimulation. Then you go into the lounge where the kids are and the family is, or someone's cooking in the kitchen, and you still practice those same exercises, but you increase the distraction level. And over time, that's how you get the behavior when you out on a walk or in the park, rather than trying to just getting that behavior right in the environment that you wanted right in is really, really, really tough.
And like you say, obviously you're trying to minimize the distractions. Yeah. You obviously, when you're doing this training, you do it with one dog. You're not trying to bring in, I think, a lot of the stuff, and I think people don't realize that, and I relate to it, because I obviously have a pack. And when I'm going, okay, come, let's do a little bit of let's teach you to sit or whatever, I want to do something and put eye drops in or whatever, all of them come. And then you've got this whole situation where there is massive distraction, and you expect a behavior that is just not going to happen. It's not going to happen. So the main thing is, obviously, do you provide that kind of guidance, like, guys, this is what you need, practical tips, you need a lead, you need treats, you need reward-based stuff. Exactly. So you provide all of those steps before people are, so you train people to set up and then do it. So phenomenal. What we do is, like I was going to say to you, is a game-based dog training approach. So the idea behind that is, at the moment, the dog training industry is, you go and you do exercises. So you do this exercise, and you do this exercise, and you do this exercise. And it's not always that much fun and engaging, like sit down, like, it's okay, but it's like that you can make it a lot more fun and entertaining. So there was a lady that I think I'm not sure she came up with it, but she popularized it. Her name's Susan Garrett, really well-known dog trainer, also in the agility space. And I would consider her a mentor. Like, I really follow a lot of her philosophy and the way that she trains, and then combined a bit with my own dog training journey to create what we have now. And that whole entire philosophy is looking at the foundational level of behaviors that you need in order to achieve the actual outcome, right? So what we do is we build in a whole bunch of really fun games that you can play with your dog, but they're like different layers. So we'll have like level 1, level 2, level 3. But as you stack them all together, they become like a compounding effect to get the outcome that you want, right? So for example, if you're wanting to teach your dog to walk calmly on leash, right? That's really the last 3 or 4 steps of the process, whereas a lot of people go, okay, let's teach the dog to heel, right? But that's actually not where you want to start. Where you even want to start with is something that we use is, I kind of see the dog's brains as like little building blocks, right? It's not correct. You're a vet, you'll be able to tell me that that's not exactly how it works, but there's almost these qualities, like these qualities that you want in a dog that they can process in order for them to understand and learn a behavior. The first one for me is what I call a learning state of mind. A lot of dogs don't even know how to learn, right? So people are trying to train them, but the dog doesn't know how to learn. It's almost like taking
a child that hasn't gone through kindergarten or preschool and trying to teach them applied mathematics. It's not going to happen, right?
Okay.
It's too difficult. That's why there's those foundational steps where you actually teach the dog to learn. So all of our first games are all about just you and your dog engaging with each other and your dog learning how to learn, right? And then you go on to the next steps, which are building like the focus block in the dog's brain so that they can actually focus when there's distractions, or impulse control and self-control. So when
Do you teach children?
I don't know yet. I'm trying to get
there. Relate to my dogs and my child.
Exactly. Well, there's a lot of behavioral psychology that overlaps, really.
Yeah.
A lot of what I do is based in science, right? It's not. What I'm looking at is not just behavioral sciences when we design these games. Is we have to look at a dog as a whole. There's the endocrine system and how the hormones are impacting the dog, the evolution of dogs and how they engage with people, the social aspects of dogs. You know, there's the whole thing about dogs being pack animals, which is kind of true and also kind of not true. They form more of a social structure. So similar to how like elephants work. Like that's an elephant social structure is more like how a dog unit functions versus actually a pack when you really look into the science of it. So you need to look at all of these different elements and then build those into those games we were talking about. And then to go back to the calm on leash and getting your dog to be responsive, you then build in all of those different blocks of focus, calmness, optimism. So when they see a new object, they don't just kick off and like try and bite it, where you can actually teach them to be responsive and re-engage with you. So you add all those elements in, and then you teach a dog,
then you pick up the lead.
Exactly. This is now where you walk, right?
Wow.
And when you do that and you strategically layer it like that, that's when you get the results versus going straight to getting the dog just to walk on leash.
Is this why a lot of people fail?
Yeah.
Okay. So because you're missing that fundamental aspect of actually getting their engagement, allowing them to kind of be in a good space for learning, and then
move on.
And now, a word from our amazing sponsors who make the Pause and Effect podcast possible. To make a promise implies trust. To make a pledge creates expectation. And to make a commitment initiates responsibility. For more than 25 years, we have made it our mission to take the ifs, buts, and maybes out of premium pet food. That's why our experts put the best science behind our food, so your pet's health is put first. That's why when you seek value, we strive to give you more, like protecting your pets with our free accident benefits. And when you need great tasting food, our fresh meat taste delivers. You see, what sets us apart is not one thing, it's all these things combined. Because we understand that when it comes to your pet's health, you don't want doubt and uncertainty. You want absolutes, the absolute best given your means, like premium veterinary quality food of real value that doesn't cost an arm and a paw. So rest assured that any claim we make, we stand by. It's our commitment to your pets and our promise to you. In fact, we're so confident in what we stand for that we have made the ultimate promise to you. It's called the Ultra Pet Promise, 100% money back guarantee, a no ifs, no buts, and no maybes kind of promise. We call it our satisfaction guarantee. Welcome back to Just for Pets. You're with Dr. Cara.
Hi, Doc. It's Jackson the Jack Rossi here, and boy am I itchy.
Are you on a hypoallergenic diet?
Hyper what now?
Changing to a special diet will really help. And Just for Pets have a massive range. And flea and tick medication, special shampoo.
Ooh, how quick can I get some?
Order today and we'll deliver pronto.
I feel better already.
Justforpets.co.za. Vet approved, pet adored. Gets it all to your door.
Let's get back to our conversation on the Pause and Effect podcast.
Often I find if you get a dog from a puppy, they kind of learn how to learn with you if you start going to puppy classes. However, when you get like rescue dogs or dogs that are a little bit older, that's often where I see the biggest struggle, because the dogs haven't learned how to learn because they haven't had that human connection. So you need to put those steps. I mean, I do it with my puppies anyway, but you need to put those steps in first place. Yeah.
And obviously for people, what are the kind of basic steps that you would be putting in place if you got a puppy? What are the starting blocks for the kind of work that you would then want to do?
That's a great question. You're not always going to be able to know this, especially if you get a rescue dog. You don't really know what mix you're getting. But if you can tell, do some research on the breed so you know what you're in for.
Okay.
That's like the biggest, that's not even dog training, but that's just actually understanding what your dog is.
So behaviorally, their temperament, their demeanor, the problems that they display.
They display. Yeah, even decide, is this dog actually a family dog or not? Like I've got border collies. Mine are trained, but if you had a whole bunch of kids running around, they probably won't be the best temperament. Not all of them. Some of them are really good with kids, but they get into the herd. I've actually seen border collies try herd kids and nipping. So there's those kinds of things. You go, okay. You also can't get, if your dog does that, you then need to go get training to get that out of them and desensitize them from being able to do that. But you need to be aware that that's a possible. That's possibly where it can go.
Instinctual.
Exactly. And then deal with that from a puppy so that you know that that's controlled and it never becomes a problem later on. So that's the first step. Next one is really understanding management of having a puppy. One of the things is it's quite really well used overseas. In Europe and the US is crate training. But here in South Africa, it's not a big thing. But that comes with a big caveat. Crate training doesn't mean stick your dog in a crate
and lock it
in there. That is not what crate training means. It means when the dog has had all its, or the puppy has had all its needs met, like it's been for its exercise, it's been to the bathroom, you've played with it, you've done a bit of training. When you're not supervising the puppy, then it should be in a crate or in like an X-pen, which is like a big, if the audience doesn't know what that is, it's like a big sort of crate that's open at the top and it's got like 8 sides, but where they got a very limited environment so that they can't like go and destroy things, right? And because then people get upset because now they're chewing cables and shoes and then also messing in the house. When you can use that controlled environment, you'll see your puppy wake up. You go, okay, great. You take the puppy outside. So I mean, I had a litter of puppies, border collie puppies, actually towards the end of COVID. And when they were 8 weeks old and they left, well, actually, I think a lot of them left at around 9 weeks. And I kept one of the border collie puppies, Gaia. It was the first time of me raising my own puppy that I'd bred from my like agility lines. And in that time, from 8 to 9 weeks old, she only messed in the house 3 times. Right, so and she had learned what, and that's just through management, and I've never had an issue with that again. A couple of my other border collies that I had that were imported for me to compete with, I had massive issues with them because they hadn't had that exposure from a young age, and then there was a big key part of having to manage that. So that's the big one. The next one is getting yourself into a puppy class or potentially using the app and just getting the basic things down. Your dog needs to learn how to learn, needs to learn impulse control, self-control, focus work, optimism, calmness. That's also a big one where you can actually teach your dog to be calm on cue. I know, it's groundbreaking when you figure it out because, when your dog is being like over the top and you can actually ask them to go and settle, it's a game changer. It's a game changer when there's like, you've got kids and there's 10,000 things going on at home and you're trying to run your veterinary practice, but you can actually say, okay, I actually can't deal with this right now. Can you please just go lie down? That's also a big thing to train your dogs. And then, the basic cues so that you can have a recall. So when you go out to the park, your dog comes back when called and, a good loose leash walk. And other big one, and this is something that I actually haven't put a lot of focus on with my dogs, but my next puppy is going to be, it's going to be a big part, is husbandry. So when you take your dog to the vet, the vet can completely handle them, check their teeth, and where they're used to being handled in that way, where it's easy for you to trim their nails. And that's going to be one of our future courses for sure, where that's a big focus.
It makes a big difference.
It's huge, yeah.
Especially when it comes to, I was mentioning, trying to get eye drops into the Rotti. I mean, that is...
I'm sure it's a charade, isn't it?
It's impossible.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, the number of rewards, and I mean, that's one of the things I really wanted to tap into is, the the basis of your app, from what I'm
Yep.
understanding, is a lot of it's around play, which is a great reward system.
Yep.
Whereas a lot of the behavioral sort of modification I've tried to put in place has been around food.
Uh-huh.
And that is great, but now, of course,
You always need the food,
I always
right?
need the food.
Right?
I always need the food.
Yeah.
I mean, to the extent, and I'm quite embarrassed to tell the story, and I'm going to be
go
very
for it.
brief. No.
Go for it.
I have a
Yeah.
real problem with the Rotti getting out of the gate. And
Okay.
sometimes he's absolutely fine, and there's
Yep.
no issue, and I can drive my car out, and other days he just goes, I'm out.
And he's out, yeah.
And so, we've got into a system where I actually keep food in the car so that I can throw it out of my window,
Yep.
so that he's eating and I can leave. But that
Okay.
for me is like a frustrating, and you would think like I would know a solution to this. And obviously a lot of people ask me some behavioral things. I'm like, oh, I can tell you how to do that. But there's a lot I can't, because I can't get it right with
Right.
my own dogs.
Yep, yep.
So I'm very fascinated in this as a different reward. Rewarding in a different way. Like I think even people who have children these days, you kind of go, okay, fine, you could go on your iPad or whatever. We're rewarding behavior that we actually don't want.
Yeah.
And obviously
Because it's easier.
It's easier.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I like the fact that you're rewarding through gaming or
Yep.
experience, which
Yep.
is interesting.
Yeah. So first of all, don't make yourself wrong for because we've all been there where there's certain behaviors we just manage. Like
Yeah.
with my dogs too, prime example, we'll come back to this, but I just want you to know that I'm in the same boat.
Okay,
That
good.
I've got border collies and and the puppy that I kept, she always barks if her mom won't play with her, right? So, sometimes I've got I haven't spent the time to try and train that out of her, and I do a management where I just bring the mom inside into my office. Do you know what I mean? And then that stops the barking. But it's that exact same thing.
Just reinforces, you got what you wanted.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's a very normal thing to do. So yeah, don't stress yourself out
you're late,
over that.
I need to go. I can't be chasing a dog down the road.
Exactly. So I get it. Okay, so there's two parts here that I want to talk about. Is the one you said where the games itself can be rewarding. I still do use reward-based dog training, but it is slightly different. So the reward can just be praise and the love and the enjoyment of engaging and playing with you. But to also train some of the behaviors, I use food or toys to get the behavior. However, what I do is I use the rewards very strategically. So I'm always looking at what's a high value reward for my dog and a low value reward. And what that means is a lot of people actually end up training with low value rewards. So those are the really hard biscuits. And you shouldn't, not just hard biscuits, but they might be liver snaps and so on. And it's not that you shouldn't use those, but you should use them strategically for certain things. Then you also have your high value rewards, which could be, for a lot of dogs, it might be a little piece of steak or
cheese
Vienna
or
cheese, exactly. I do sometimes use cheese, but I do try to avoid it because I know it's not the best for dogs. You know what I mean? But
it smells strong.
But it smells strong. But some biltong for South Africans,
Yeah.
you guys, that kind of stuff's going to work well. So you want to have a variety to use from. So when a dog is understanding you first teaching a behavior, you want to use high value rewards, and as they get used to it, you can then start giving them lower value rewards. But when you up the criteria, so where I was saying, I start training a behavior in the bathroom, right? I will start with high value rewards, but then we'll start going down to lower value rewards to practice that behavior in the bathroom. But when I now go into a new, the bedroom or the lounge, we go back up to higher value rewards.
Okay.
So it's just not about, you have to use that strategy first.
Yes.
Then, I was going to tell you a bit about the science of, I'll come back to that, a bit about the science of how it works, but there's also something else that's called the transfer of value. So the value of the actual reward, so how good it is and how it makes the dog feel, actually can get transferred into the behavior, right?
Okay.
So where I love this treat so much, and it starts getting associated with the behavior, that's where the behavior starts becoming the reward for the dog. So if you've ever seen our agility dogs going, so if those of you that don't know what agility is, it's a sport that I do with my dogs, and it's when they go over jumps and through tunnels and
So
over,
impressive.
it's really fun. It's really, really fun. But if you watch our border, and it's not like that for all of the dogs, but if you watch a lot of our border collies, It wouldn't matter if we had a treat on us or a toy, they'd be game to do it. You know what I mean? And that's because the value of the reinforcement that we've put in and the treats that we've used over time has now transferred into the value to jump or to go through the weaving poles or to go through the tunnel. It's like that exciting for them. And then, of course, at the end, they get a reward because that's just how, that's part of the game. But that's how I structure my training. So it's not always eventually doing the behavior correctly becomes the reward. So there's a correlation between them getting the reward and a dopamine dump, right? And that dopamine reinforces that choice. So the more that they do it, the feel good of doing it correctly and they get the reward, that becomes the reward of the dog just doing the behavior.
Amazing.
But there is a but. The only way that this works is if in the beginning you can train it where your dog can see the treats, right? But eventually what you need to do is take the treats out of view. So they can know that you've got the treats on you, so you can put it in a pouch or something behind you, but taking the treats and showing them all the time doesn't create the association.
Okay.
So there was I'm sure you've heard of Pavlov's dogs, right?
Yes.
And the ringing bell,
yes.
right? So if he would show the food, right, and ring the bell, there would be no correlation. So he would have to do it hundreds of times for there to remotely become a correlation between the dog seeing the food first and then the bell. But if he rang the bell first and then presented the food, it was the science might be a bit off here, guys.
No.
You can fact check me, but it's like he only needed 20 or 30 reps before the dog would understand that whenever the bell would ring, they'd be expecting the reward. But if you do it the other way around, it doesn't work.
Wow.
So that's why a lot of reward-based dog training doesn't work, because the dog can already see the reward,
Okay.
right? So you can do that in the beginning so that they can learn to understand the behavior.
And gives the focus.
The focus,
Yeah.
right? But when you want to get that transfer of value that I just explained, that's the part where you need to now remove the visual aspect of the reward. They do the behavior, but they anticipate. So we're using the dog's anticipatory nature.
But
And
this is the frustrating thing.
You
You can
only
open the
do-
gate,
Yeah.
and he's like, "Yeah, you're here. It's great."
Yeah.
But as soon as I leave in a car, and some days are absolutely fine, there's just that moment where he just like a switch.
A switch where it goes off, where they almost go
It's
deaf,
unpredictable.
right?
Yes.
Where they
I
and
hear
they get
nothing.
and it goes out.
Yeah.
So well, I'll still get back to your answer, but there's
No,
another
no.
piece of information you need to know here. So there's something what we call in dog training an arousal curve. So you can imagine that it goes like this, up and then down, right? And what happens is you got under arousal and over arousal, right? And what happens is when your dog is under aroused, they don't really care to respond, right? They're not even interested, because that's when they're sleeping on the couch or chilling, and you'll often find that with certain breeds of dogs of like a basset hound or something like that. There's not going to be that much that's going to excite them. You know what I mean? There's those certain breeds. I mean, there's even border collies that not certain things just would not excite them. And then you get over arousal, right? And what happens there is when the dog becomes now way too excited to even respond, right? So it's literally their brain switches off and they've focused on one thing and that's where they're going. And this is something that's also used in peak performers, of where if you're under aroused or over aroused, you can't perform correctly. So I also do show jumping with horses. So if you go into an over aroused state, that means you're no longer focused, your mind's gone somewhere else, and then you lose track of what you're doing.
Is this you as an individual, as a person?
I'm saying as a person, it applies to people as well, but also
fascinating.
dogs,
Yeah.
right? And what happens is what you're wanting to do, there's this peak place in between the two, and that's where your dog is responsive. And what we do in dog training is we push up that arousal curve in a controlled environment, right? And get them to respond. So we get them to respond in an arousal, at a high arousal state, and then bring them back down. And we do that multiple times. And what that does is it almost creates these neuro pathways within the dog's brain to make the correct choice. So they understand, and the more you get that right over and over and over and over again, and that's the high repetition, that when your dog is faced with that challenge, they go, even when the gate opens and a dog comes running past, it brings them back down. They know what the behavior is. So there's that part, right? And then what I was talking to you earlier about is the different building blocks in the dog's brain. So what he's probably lacking is self-control, focus, and impulse control, right? So what you would want to do is do a couple of those games first, so he can actually understand what self-control is and impulse control is and focus games. Then I would add in the element of something that we call place training, which is, I'm sure you've seen it, like a raised dog bed, quite popular here in South Africa, where they got like legs and they have like a...
Off the ground.
Yeah, off the ground, right? And what I do is I teach the dogs to jump on and lie on those place training, right? And where it creates a boundary so they understand that they cannot move off of that specific area.
Oh, how clever.
And then what I was talking about, the arousal level, right, is I then increase the arousal whilst getting them to wait on that specific spot, right? So now to a point of, like, say your dog really loves tennis balls, they can still wait on that spot and you bounce the tennis ball, they then get a reward, and this is something that's called the Premack principle, and then they get to go play with the ball. So they get the reward of staying there, and then because they've made the correct choice, they now get what they actually really wanted, right? So when you have something like that in place, you could then teach a boundary across a gate. And you could do that with someone who would have to help you with driving the car in and out, but he would then have the ability to understand that's my boundary and I cannot leave it. It's interesting, and also how quickly they can learn that. So to the point of, you could practice, you could have someone put him on a leash and just stand on the leash, and if he steps over, you wait until he makes the choice to come back in, then he gets the reward. Right? So what you're doing is marking the correct behavior of him coming back in. But this is the same thing of where I said earlier, you need to do all the foundational stuff first, because if you just jump to that, he would never get it.
Absolutely.
He would just stand at the end of the leash. Do you know what I mean? Like,
So-
that's about it.
So you're offering, in terms of the app, you're obviously putting a lot of these core sort of foundation level things in place, so that people start. I can't say, hey, listen, Matt, can you come and help me get this? You're like, you need to get the focus and whatnot, and you have to go through a process. In your own time, when you can, when you've got availability, you've got the app, you can practice these things. But any specific like problem areas, are you able to tailor make things for people, or are there generally so many situations that you are going to be providing scenarios for every one of them?
Great question. So it's I'll tell you a bit more about where the app is going in the future. Right now, we'll have a community aspect, so you could ask questions, right? And myself or someone on my team will get back to you and say, okay, just try rearrange the games that you've done, but do it like this, this, and this, so that it will help you specifically with the challenge that you're having with your dog. What we're also doing is a certification program, so people will be able to be certified in my dog training method, and those people will be able to use the app to help people with those specific problems. So you'd be able to book a one-on-one consultation, and someone would be able to completely curate a dog training plan just for you. So you would be able to go through all those foundational steps and then actually get real-time feedback from someone that is certified through my dog training method, that understands these games, all the foundational levels, understands all the different games that you need in order to achieve a specific outcome.
And if people want to talk to you and consult directly with you?
It's a little bit difficult, I'll be honest.
You can't be everywhere at all
exactly,
times.
and as much as I'd love to, and I'm sure you get this too as like a vet, and it's probably one of the most difficult things of like, where all you want to do is help, but you also need your own time. And if I was helping people 24/7, I'd never create any new content or run a business. But at the moment, it's still in the early stages. So if people get in early, they will be able to, they'll be able to engage with me and with people on my team. But yeah, at this point, there won't really be that sort of level of, I'm not going to be able to come to your house and train your dog, or, that sort of thing. And for as much as I'd love to, but that's what my trainers will be there to do, right? Absolutely. So where you can actually hire someone that understands the method, maybe is local to you, is local to you, understands the method through and through, they can come and help and assist you with that.
That's incredible. What a good offering.
Yeah. So,
and I mean, I would love to, we're running out of time a bit, but I want to talk to you in part 2 about some specific examples, if we can just sort of tap into some basic stuff.
Absolutely.
And then got some questions for you. But, just in terms of the availability, so how do people get in contact with you or your team about downloading this app? When is it available? How can they access it?
So if you go to mattythedogtrainer.com, so it's MATTY thedogtrainer.com, you'll be able to get onto the wait list, and we'll send you an email when it's ready. We're hoping it's going to be ready kind of the first or second week of November, so it'll be very soon. And like I said, please do forgive us. There's probably going to be a couple of bugs and stuff. It is just starting out. But yeah, that's where, and then that's also my Instagram handle. So if anyone ever has questions, I always welcome people to send me questions, and if I can reply, I'll just send a voice note and say, hey, this is what you could do, or even give some resources that might not even be my company, but other dog trainers that they could reach out to. Often, there's a lot of cases that fit into dog training and then also behavioral issues, which are kind of two different things. Dog training is very, very much around just getting your dog to do a specific behavior, like come back when called, or when being able to walk on leash, or not jump on the couch, or sit when people are coming over to visit. But behavioral issues often revolve around dogs having extreme anxiety and or
like fear aggression.
But I can help you with a little bit, but there's sometimes where it's really over the top, where dogs are going after children and family members, and that stuff is really severe. And you get animal behaviorists that often will work with a vet like you to sometimes dogs need medication and stuff. You can't just fix everything with dog training. There are moments. There are limitations. Just like the same with people. Like you can go to therapy and so on, but sometimes you do actually need that a bit more help. So you can think of a dog trainer as like your best friend that's there to help you through a hard time. But when there's also a severe behavioral issue, you could always approach a dog trainer, and any good dog trainer will say, listen, this is what you can do from a dog training perspective, but I also think you should go and seek out behaviorist's advice and the behaviorist can be in contact with your vet if they need medication or so on.
That's incredible. I'm very excited.
Awesome, I'm glad.
Very
Thank
excited.
you.
I'll be checking it out, and we'll be referring people to it. But we're going to take a break, and we're going to join us in part 2, where we talk some specific examples, if you're happy to.
I'd love that.
For me to tap your brain.
That sounds great.
Okay,
Thank you.
Great. Thanks.
Cheers.
Today, we've had the pleasure of exploring the world of pets and delving into behavior and training to maximize your pet's potential with our incredible guest, Matthew Couperthwaite, aka Matty the dog trainer. His expertise in dog training and behavior, along with his role as an online course creator and content producer, has truly given us a lot to work on as pet owners. It's been a fascinating journey, and we hope you've gained some valuable insights. But before we say goodbye, I want to invite all our listeners to connect with me on social media as the Ultra Pet Vet. Please like, subscribe, and share the podcast. If you have any questions or experiences to share, don't hesitate to reach out. Join us next week for another exciting episode. And until then, give your pets a warm hug from me. Thank you for being part of the Pause and Effect podcast community. We have an exciting announcement to make. We are looking for guest speakers who are passionate about the pet industry and sponsors to support future episodes. Are you an expert in pet training, nutrition, or behavior? Maybe you're a veterinarian with insights to share, a pet store owner with unique experiences, or a pet product inventor. We want to hear from you. The Pause and Effect podcast is a platform for industry professionals like you to showcase your knowledge, experiences, and stories. As a guest speaker on our podcast, you'll have the opportunity to share valuable information, engage with our audience, and have your voice heard in the pet community. Whether you want to discuss training techniques, emerging pet care trends, or the importance of mental stimulation for pets, we want to feature you and your expertise. So, if you're passionate about pets and have something to say, we invite you to join us on an upcoming episode of the Pause and Effect podcast. But wait, that's not all. The Pause and Effect podcast is also seeking sponsors to support our mission of educating and entertaining pet lovers worldwide. By becoming a sponsor, you'll gain exposure to our engaged audience and have your brand associated with the love and care that we have for our four-legged friends. If you own a pet-related business, offer pet products or services, or simply want to align your brand with our pet-loving community, we'd love to partner with you. As a sponsor, your brand will be featured prominently in our episodes and our social media channels. It is a great opportunity to showcase your offerings to a dedicated audience of pet enthusiasts. So whether you're an expert in the pet industry looking to share your knowledge, or a business seeking to reach a pet-loving audience, we want to hear from you. To apply as a guest or to inquire about becoming a sponsor of the Pause and Effect podcast, please contact me at drkara@pauseandeffect.co.za. Get in touch and let's discuss the various opportunities. Thank you for joining us today. We can't wait to welcome our future guest speakers and sponsors to the Pause and Effect podcast. Remember, every episode is an opportunity to celebrate our four-legged friends.